Hello, and welcome to Discovery Corner. I'm Claire Melvin. Pop the kettle on, pour yourself a glass of wine, maybe even put your trainers on or run a bath, and join me for another journey of discovery. Happy New Year! It's January, and this is a good time to press reset, think about what's working, what's not working, and maybe set yourself some goals, but in a very unpressured way. My guest today is Elsa Dale, financial coach, and we're going to talk about money. So firstly, welcome, Elsa. It's great to have you here.
Morning, Claire. It's lovely to have you here. Lovely to be with you as well.
Brilliant. So just before we go any further, I'd like to say that if you're impacted by anything that you hear in today's show, please talk to somebody, and our conversation in no way constitutes financial advice. And if you're after help, seek an independent financial advisor or another professional, and we'll give you some links in the show notes. And the other thing I'd just like to say as well is that whatever your current money story is, wherever you are in your life, treat yourself without judgment and with compassion, and it's never too late to change your money story. So Elsa, before we get going, would you like to share something about yourself?
Well, yes. Well, how did I get to here? I guess as
Yeah.
an introduction to perhaps what financial coaching is and how it's different to financial advice, because that's really a key thing to understand. So a little bit about my background. I've always worked in sort of corporate commercial roles. And then a few years ago, I retrained and I trained as a primary teacher because I thought about changing career, but decided that actually teaching in the education system was not for me. But then I did the coaching qualifications as well. So it's kind of like all these things are sort of wrapped up together to bring me to where I am today. And so just talking about a little bit about understanding what financial coaching is. It's really helping people to understand where they are with their money, and their and their beliefs around money and how they interact with money and all kinds of issues, all kinds of things around that, which is really much more of a behavioral and sort of psychological thing rather than actual thinking about the numbers themselves. It's far less about the numbers. It's sort of like 90% about behavior and about what people, how people think about and the actions they take around the money that they have.
Yeah.
So just thinking about how that differs from advice. Advice has always been very much really geared around selling something, selling a product or a service to you. You might say, okay, well, what do I need to do with money? Or well, you could put it into this product, fund, whatever it is. And that's the advice part. So that's not what I do. And I would never do that. I would never advise somebody to do something. That's a heavily regulated industry, and you have to be qualified and you need insurance. And because it is so heavily regulated and you need the qualifications and the insurance, and you have to go through a lot of background checks and things in order to be able to give somebody advice and say, this is what I recommend you do, it is necessarily quite an expensive process. Yeah. So we have created a system that is designed to protect the consumer by being robust and giving, and being able to give them full information, look closely at what they need and what's right for them. But in so doing so, we've kind of cut out a large proportion of the population's ability to be able to access those services at the same time. So coaching is kind of different because you can do all the kind of pre-work, if you like, around the money side of it, right up to the point. As long as you don't ever say to someone, this is what I think you should do with your money, then at that point, it becomes regulated, and all the discussions, all the conversations beforehand also become regulated. But you can do a big chunk of work, whether that person then feels they still need to go and speak to a financial advisor afterwards to say, okay, I've been through all this process, now what? Or whether they feel that that's sufficient and answers questions for them. But it's really about being able to open up the conversation for people who can't necessarily afford proper regulated financial advice, which could run into thousands of pounds and may not, may or may not even be necessary at this point in their lives. So yeah, that's I think the fundamental, the fundamental differences between the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I suppose as well, if you like someone like me, I don't have a vast sum of money, so therefore I probably wouldn't feel the need to go to a financial advisor and say, what do I do with my pathetic pot? Whereas I might feel better to come to someone like you and say, well, actually, how can that kind of mindset thing around my behaviors with saving or spending or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And also there's a big kind of education gap there as
Mm.
well, because it's not something we're taught in schools. And
Yeah.
certainly really came to light when I was doing the teaching qualification at primary level. And I think it is changing in a couple of years' time. They are going to look to bring in some financial literacy lessons at primary level, but and that's great. It needs to
Mm.
happen, but it will just be scratching the surface. And there's millions of people already been through the system who haven't had any kind of education up till
Mm.
now. It's maths is taught very much as a maths problem solving basis, and not a how do you budget your household income.
Mm.
You've got X amount to spend. How are you going to allocate those
Yeah.
funds on a monthly basis? What's most important? Do you even have a budget?
Yeah.
Those kinds of questions. So there's a really big gap there that we need to fill. And so the government, in trying to protect people, so there's a real big question: have we gone too far?
Mm.
In how do we readdress the balance to be able to serve people better and give them
Yeah.
more information going forward?
And then I think if maths maybe wasn't a strong point for you, and if you've not really kind of budgeted too much before,
Mm.
that can actually be quite scary. So I personally I've got a bank account. I've got a basic Excel spreadsheet, which I've color
Mhm.
coded. So if money comes in, it's one color. Money comes out, it's a different color depending on whether it's like my utilities, my mortgage, my coffee, because I do spend money on coffee every month, and like other things like that. So I can kind of see where the money is going. But
Mhm.
actually, I was never very good with money, but I'm pretty good now. Um, but actually that is a taught thing. It's something that I've had coaching on in the past and kind of learnt that. And it's easier to kind of track stuff and identify stuff if you feel confident. And actually, guess that is what this is about, is that people don't
Exactly.
necessarily have that confidence.
It's about gaining confidence, and what we don't understand we fear,
Mm.
because we don't have, you don't have this knowledge. You think you're not good at something, and maths is a big one in schools. Lots of children think, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not very good at maths, I don't feel confident with it, I don't really understand it. And the truth is, to be good at money, you don't need to be super whizzy at maths.
Yeah.
You don't need to know Pythagoras theory and circle geometry and algebra. You just need to know how to multiply, subtract, divide, add, a bit about percentages and decimal
Mm.
places, use a calculator, a spreadsheet, great, that really helps to speed things up. And that's it. That
Yeah.
really is as much in terms of maths that you really need to be able to know to be good at maths.
Mm.
And just going back, I'll share a little story about maths and school, and sometimes how we pick up these limiting beliefs as well around maths, which then feeds into money. Is that when I was 10 years old, we moved house and relocated to a completely different part of the country. And so I
Mm.
had to change schools, which was quite a, at 10 years old, it was quite a traumatic, it was a
Yeah.
big thing to do. And I went from one school and I joined a new school. And almost within the first week, I can remember sitting there thinking, in a maths lesson, oh my God, all these children know their times tables and I don't.
Mm.
I'm the odd one out. I must be stupid. I
Mm.
must be doing something completely wrong here. I'm obviously not good at maths. And I know that's where that belief kind of came from. And I carried that belief for the next 30 years.
Mm.
I wasn't good at maths, even though I ended up working in a commercial role. I was running multi-million pound customer accounts with big, grocery multiple retailers.
Mm.
But no, still, I'm not very good at maths. Don't feel
Yeah.
confident with it because I had this belief. And then when I went to do the teacher training for the PGCE primary education back in, well, I was probably in my early 40s at that time, still holding on to this belief, I realised that at the point at which I was at school when I was 10 years old, teaching timetables was not part of the national curriculum.
Mm.
And nobody ever said to me, it's not on the national curriculum.
Mm.
You haven't been taught it. I just assumed that because I'd moved from a school that hadn't taught something because it wasn't on the curriculum
Mm.
to one that had taught it to their students, despite it not being on the national
Mm.
curriculum, that there was then something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that actually the government said, you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to teach them. But I'd picked up that belief. And for
Mm.
30 years, I carried this belief with me. And suddenly I was like, oh, you mean it was never actually a requirement for you to teach me that in the first place. And I believe, so this is where these things
Yeah.
are picked up, and often within families, somebody in your family, oh, I'm not very good at maths. Oh, well, my parent wasn't very good at maths. They say that to their child, and
Mm.
suddenly the child believes, oh, well, I've inherited this can't do maths gene.
Mm.
And it's just nonsense, really.
Yeah.
So, and then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I'm not very good at maths, so I don't perhaps engage as much as I
Mm.
would do otherwise if I believed I was really good at something and therefore could enjoy it more. So yes, it's funny how these things kind of creep in and you have no idea where they've come from, or you believe some things to be so completely true and
Mm.
actually it's something completely outside of your
Yeah.
control and circumstances.
And that reminds me, when I was at school, we had sets, because I don't know if they still do now, it's probably showing my age. And I was in the bottom set of maths. Um, and again, I kind of carried this thing, if I'm in the bottom set, I must be terrible. Now I got a B at maths at GCSEs.
Very good.
I also have a degree a degree in economics, which is very maths based. And yet I still have
Again,
this.
you're
I
too,
can't
too
do
small,
maths,
so
but
I'm
hang on a
not
sec.
morons. No, exactly. And
It's
maths is
ridiculous.
funnily, it's one of the ones that probably people would most say, what are you good at school or what are you bad at? It's probably the one that people pick up on the most. So,
Yeah.
uh,
It's just bonkers because actually, if you
yes,
think about it, I can I can do maths. It's
of
just
course you can. Of course you can. And then certainly in being able to manage your finances,
Mm.
the basic of basic maths skills that
Yeah,
you need to be able to do
yeah,
that. What's missing is really the confidence bit and more perhaps a bit of an understanding of the financial system.
Mm.
And then that kind of bleeds into, oh, well, if I can't do that, everyone else must know something I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you get into the whole comparison thing, don't you? It's like, oh, well,
Mm.
what are they doing that, everybody else has it all sorted and I don't.
Mm.
So that's not the truth, not true
No.
at all. Not true. So many people are leveraged with debt and, living beyond their means and
Mm.
yeah, what you see is not the reality
No.
very
And just
often.
because, your next door neighbor buys like the latest car and you've got a friend who gets all the gadgets, that doesn't mean that they're good with money. It just
No,
means that
it just means they're good at spending it.
indeed. And they may have, lots in the bank and a pension and savings and a life plan, but they may not. And it's just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean that you're doing something in inverted commas wrong.
Mm.
Um
Yeah, and
actually
I
there's
think it's borne out if you look at the
mm,
statistics around credit card debt and the
mm,
rising amount of personal debt that people have and hold. I think it's very clear that nationally across the board,
mm,
really, people are spending
yeah.
more than they have available to them overall.
And actually, it's funny you said that. So I have two credit cards. I have one with my bank, and I pay that off every single month. And I've got one which is a 0% interest, and occasionally I put stuff on it and pay it off.
Mm.
And my company wrote to me last couple of months ago and said, "Oh, have 0% on us for 20 months." So clearly they thought I haven't spent enough money recently.
Yes, they're
Um,
very good at selling debt.
so exactly, it's like, and obviously it's my responsibility, and I need to know that if I buy something, I can pay it off. And actually, I did put a bit on it because I know that I could have gone out and bought it today and paid it off today, but I decided actually
Mm.
I need new glasses, I need a few other bits and pieces, so I've kind of done that responsibly, and it will be paid off well within the sort of the 20 months and probably within about six. But like you say, they make it so easy, all these kind of Klarna and these other things that, just buy it now, don't worry about paying for it. And it
Yeah,
can be very easy to just kind of get sucked into that. And,
very
if you're having a
easy.
tough time, actually, oh, well, I'm going to treat myself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help
No, it
sometimes.
doesn't. No, it's very easy to get sucked into that. Oh well, it's live
It's
for
not real
today.
money. Yeah.
Don't worry about tomorrow, kind of thing. Live for
Mm,
today. Don't, particularly when you're younger, and perhaps as you get older and you see the finish line closing
mm,
in a bit, like I am now, thinking, oh my goodness, it suddenly brings things into a bit more relief. But from a psychological point of view, if you're in your 20s and you're trying to think about yourself in your 60s, that person is like a whole other person to you. It's like thinking from a cognitive perspective, it's like they're a complete stranger. It's like giving money or putting money aside to give to a complete stranger. So why would I sacrifice something for myself today to give it to this random person walking down the street who I don't know and I've never met? Somehow we need to get over that and understand that, God willing, we're all going to live long and healthy lives, and we will need something in the future. And just to be able to get over that belief thing about, oh well, it doesn't really matter. It's just one more month. I'll just go and buy that thing this month, and I put something aside next month. But it's building those consistent habits over time that really make the difference, and to be able to support that future you in your 60s or 70s or 80s and beyond. Yes. So it's and also there's a bit of historical context to put in around that as well. I was just thinking I went back and double checked the date on this because I couldn't quite believe it, but it was 1975 before women were allowed to open a bank account or apply for a loan in their own name.
Wow.
Without having their husband or their father or somebody underwrite things. 1970, that is within my living lifetime, just so I need to tell you.
It's the year before I was born. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's insane.
So exactly, which is utterly insane. So my mother went through all her early years, up to the point of, so she couldn't have applied for a loan and lived on her own. My grandparents, definitely not. My grandparents, neither of them would have been able to have financial independence. This is absolutely huge. And we wonder why we feel that we're struggling today in terms of money, because we weren't taught it. We didn't have access to it. Certainly as women, we didn't have access to it. It was even, and I'll just throw another one in there as well for context, 1982, up until 1982, women could legally be refused to serve alcohol in pubs. 1982. For me, that was like yesterday. It was like that was my childhood. And to think that we think, oh, women have had this liberation for so long, and it's just not the case at all. And even for men, the whole financial world is changing so fast. That's a great thing, because there are more tools and things available to us today than there's ever been, and it's actually easier today to take control of your money and look after yourself. But these things are relatively new, and we're all beginners, and it's getting over that point. So actually we are all beginners, and we're all starting from somewhere, and maybe people need a little bit of help or guidance in order to be able to navigate some of this territory, which is completely new and often very hidden, because people don't talk about money very much. Even within families, there's a lot of taboo still around talking around money.
And actually, just sort of going back, saying there's so much more these days than there ever has been. On the flip side, that then can be quite overwhelming. It's like, well, who do I go to? Who can I trust? Who is somebody that is kind of, an authority that I think, yes, I can, listen to what you're saying and sort of take that on board, sort of thing. So it's just because there is more, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easier.
No, and it's quite vulnerable as well, isn't it? I mean, from coaching is quite a vulnerable process anyway, because you've got to be prepared to sort of open up and say, I don't understand this, or maybe I think I've made a mistake, and I need to kind of work through. So being able to just hold your hands up and say, I need some help. So when you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, not that I've been to Alcoholics Anonymous, but the first thing they want you to do is to stand up and acknowledge that there's a problem. And that's what we have, the same sort of thing with money. Is that, you can acknowledge there's a problem, or I'm missing some information, or I don't understand something. Or is it compounded by the fact that we often don't know what we don't know?
Of course.
And who to ask and where to go for information. So there's a real need out there for people just to start having a conversation. Maybe it's not the end of it. It is a journey, and we are all going to be learning about this. Things change, and still learning. I listen to lots of podcasts and read books, and all the time I'm learning new things and developing. And it's understanding that this is a journey, just like anything else, any other career or life progress. It's you learn and you change and you adapt and you change, and over time as well. Your needs and wants and what's important today is
And your
different.
circumstance as well. You have sort of, different money when you're in
Yeah,
your 40s, in
when
theory,
you're
than when you're 20s.
in your 20s and you really haven't got much money, but you've got an abundance of perhaps health and time. And
Yeah.
then in your 50s, when health and time are perhaps looking a little less, but hopefully you've got a bit more of the money. And then
Mm.
there's changes, and somewhere in between, you might have family
Yeah.
commitments and children and all of the pressure around that. So things change and shift, and
Mm.
yeah, and it's just being able to navigate all those different parts of your life and parts of
Yeah.
yourself along the way. Um, yeah, so it's really quite
Mm.
fascinating.
I just have a couple of quotes picking up a little bit on something you said a minute ago. It's from the Money and Pension Service. And it
Mm,
says almost half of all UK adults, which is 48%, regularly worry about their finances,
mm,
and 2 in 5 conceal a financial product from a loved one.
mm.
Um, and then that just kind of goes to show again what we're saying about people aren't really having these conversations. And it's still very like much of a taboo. Well, where do I start? And maybe I'm living with this person and I've got all these savings that they don't know about, and they're going to want to take it all from me, or I've got all this debt and they're going to leave me, and and
Yeah,
and it is something that it can be quite tough for people.
yeah, it's very emotive and it's very kind of like
Mm,
tied up into your identity as well
yeah.
as who you are. Yeah, am I the kind of person who thinks I'm good with money or bad with money?
Mm,
There's really no such thing. Or how do people relate to me? What if I suddenly won the lottery tomorrow and became a
mm,
multi-millionaire?
mm,
How would my friends and family react to that?
yeah.
Would they then suddenly become jealous of me? Would they become knocking on my door asking for money? There's a whole theory. Lots of people who do win the lottery will lose it again very, very quickly
Mm,
afterwards. So either they haven't built the muscle to understand how to manage that effectively, or because they feel uncomfortable, it doesn't match their sense of who they are, their
mm,
self-identity. So they feel like they have to get rid of it because it feels so uncomfortable for them to have
mm,
something perhaps that they don't feel they deserve or they don't understand. It's just not how I see myself as this particular person. And suddenly this has changed. Maybe their relationships change as a result of it. So
mm,
there's all kinds of, that's why I go back to this whole point and say it's really a psychological, it's a
mm,
behavioral thing, far more than it is actually about the numbers.
yeah.
Yeah, the numbers is really the easy bit, the maths bit. It's the how do you manage it? How do you deal with it? What do you chase? Lots of
Yeah.
people chasing big careers. We're taught very much in schools, going back to school again. It's like, oh, get good grades, you're going to get a good job. Well,
Mm,
why do we want a good job? We want a good job primarily so we can earn some money. Okay, well, that's great. Well, what are you going to do with the money once you've got it? How
mm,
are you going to manage it? Are you going
mm,
to just live paycheck to paycheck? Are you going to be able to build real wealth for yourself? What does that actually mean?
mm,
What does it look like? What is the point of earning the money
yeah.
that so many people just go out there and chase? And then very often later in life, we'll sit there and think, what am I doing?
Mm,
How much is enough? Why am I spending all this money, time?
mm,
And I think, I don't know if you read the article by Bronnie Ware or the book that she wrote, The Palliative Nurse,
no.
top 5 regrets of the dying.
Yes, I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was a palliative nurse. I think if she was in Australia, possibly. Anyway, she worked for years with dying people, and she made a note of the top 5 regrets of those people when they've reached the end of their lives and
Mm,
looked back on how they'd lived their lives and the things that they regretted that they perhaps could have done differently. And on the top one was like, I wish I'd had wish I'd had the courage to live a life that was true to myself.
mm,
I wish hadn't worked so hard because I'd missed out on my friends and my family. And
mm,
I wish yeah, there were 5 of these top 5 points, and
mm.
having more money was not one of them.
No.
But it's such a focus in society, and yet it's just a tool to get
Yeah.
to the other stuff. And that's the whole point, really, is coming back to that. It's a tool. So how are you going to use that tool?
Mm,
And what, how can you make the best of that for you in order to live the life that you want to live?
yeah. And it is quite societal about just this, oh, I have to have more money, and more money and more than the next person. But actually, it's kind
That's
of
the
going,
easy response. The
yeah,
harder
and the
one is
keeping
sitting
up
there
with
and
the
going,
Joneses. Yeah.
what do I really want and what does it actually mean for me and what
Yeah.
is actually the right life for me, rather
Yeah.
than living the expectations of somebody
What do
else.
I think I need? And actually, that was what I was going to say is
My
like,
parents
what?
thought I should be a doctor, therefore I'm a doctor, irrespective of whether I actually want to be a
Yeah.
doctor or not, simply because it comes with status and money,
Mm, mm.
whatever. Yeah.
And that kind of again comes back down to, what is money important for, and what does money actually mean to you? And like for me, money is means that I can put a roof over my head. I can pay off my mortgage I'm supposed to pay it off when I'm 70, and I would actually quite like to do it before then because I do not want to have to work as long as that. Um, I can, go away, not, 15 holidays a year, well, that'd be lovely, but even just like a couple of times I can have some, go out for a meal, I can drink a coffee. And I don't need, I live on my own, so I don't need a mansion.
Yeah.
And that's never been important to me. So money to me is kind of a way that I can then do the other things in my life. It's an enabler rather
Mm,
than, oh, I can go and, buy the latest whatever. Because like I say, we're all going to die. And, I'm not going to be able to take it with me.
mm,
So do I need a house full of stuff that just looks pretty and shiny? It's like, well, actually, I'd rather do
yeah.
that thing rather than have the thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So yeah, and it's that we think very much about money as buying tangible goods,
mm,
things, the things that we need, the stuff to survive, the basics of
yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy, the shelter, the food, the clothing. Great. Okay, so we've got all of that. But money also provides intangible benefits, things that it buys that we cannot necessarily measure very quantitatively.
Mm,
Freedom of choice, the
yeah.
ability to walk away from a job that or a life situation that isn't serving you,
Mm,
freedom to know that if you were ill you could cover your bills for a period of
mm,
time, or just those security aspects. So Morgan Housel, the author, says you spend every penny that you earn, whether you know it or not. It's like
mm, mm,
you're either buying intangible things like you have future security or future um, the ability to make a choice somewhere down the line. You're a part of buying a piece of your own future,
mm,
or you're perhaps buying something for today. And to the opposite point, the more debt that you have, you are giving you are a piece of your future is owned by somebody else.
mm,
It's something you've got to pay back to somebody else in the
yeah.
future, a bit of your life that you don't own anymore, that you then owe to somebody else.
Yeah. But I think as well, I think we obviously have talked about debt and being in debt, and it's not a good thing. But
Mm.
actually, sometimes you find yourself in that place, and it's not necessarily through any fault of your own, it's
Absolutely.
circumstances. So, and actually, that
Absolutely.
was me 10 years ago. So, again, it's that don't beat yourself up about where you are at that moment in time. Sometimes it's do what you need to do to get through that moment. And then when you've kind of come out the other side, you can then kind of get a plan and sort of think, okay, well, this is how I'm going to move forward. And that's certainly what I did.
And this
Um,
is, yeah, you've been on an
mm,
incredible journey, I know. So it's just accepting it. Life throws curveballs at you,
mm,
and it is a journey. And we all have difficult times. And I'm divorced and have a
yeah.
son and a single mother, and been made redundant I don't know how many times during my career, and
Mm,
all these things that life just throws at you. We'll all have these ups and downs,
yeah.
and that is, yeah. And sometimes you feel like you're wading through the mire,
Mm,
and other times you think, oh no, things are coasting quite good. But
yeah.
yeah, it's no shame or judgment. It's part of human life.
Yeah. It's who you are now sort of thing. And I was sort of talking, I guess we're talking a little bit about that in response, almost responsible borrowing and the future. Just
Mm.
another sort of quote from the Money and Pension Service, and that's over half of UK adults don't have a will.
Yeah.
Um, I personally I do. I haven't had one for very long, I'll be honest with you, because I thought I haven't got any money, so I don't need to worry about it. But
Well,
when
you
I
have
when
a
I
house
but well,
now.
exactly
You have an asset.
when I bought
Yeah.
my house, I was like, well, there's two things. If I died without a will,
Yeah.
either it goes to the crown, which I didn't really want, or it goes to my family from which I'm estranged. I went, yeah, they're not having it either. So
Well, you go
that's
through,
when I put that's
if
when
you
I,
die
you know,
without a will, then you basically die in what they call intestate.
yeah.
And intestate rules or laws came into force in 1837 or something like
Mm,
that. Well, you
mm,
think about family dynamics at that point in time,
yeah.
or everything we've just said about women not being able to have a bank account until 1975. Well, yeah,
Very
you look
patriarchal.
at life today, the number of second marriages and stepchildren and partners and all these kind of things. Life is vastly different. So if
Mm,
you die without a will, then they'll just say, okay, well, these testate will look back to that point in time and say, well, it automatically goes to your spouse or
mm,
to your children or whatever, and it just kind of gets divided up
mm,
against those, which may not reflect your wishes or
mm,
wants in any way, shape, or form. And one of the biggest growing forms of legal in the legal world at the moment, it is about inheritance.
mm,
And inheritance disputes, and a number of families who are disputing wills
yeah.
and inheritances and things, where people either haven't got something in place. And I know this from a family, distant family connection. A husband tragically died, and the son and the mother and his son then had to, because he died without a will, they had to have their own lawyers.
Mm,
And they were basically, and then their own lawyers were kind of trying to pick, it was an utter mess. So,
mm,
yes, there's one thing you have, please, please, please go and get a will.
yeah.
Put something in writing, put your, what you would like, your where you want your assets to go, things around, looking after your children, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and talk to your families
Mm,
beforehand. Don't let them find this out as a surprise once
yeah.
you've gone. Discuss with them, this is why I'm doing it. Is there a sibling, maybe one of your children who you feel is more deserving because of life
Mm,
circumstances, as we've just discussed. I mean, maybe one's married to a millionaire and the other's a single mother, and therefore, what's equitable as opposed to equal in
mm,
terms of split of assets,
yeah.
and maybe one feels more deserved. But talk to them about it to avoid these kind of future conflicts
Yeah.
with
Or
families.
maybe, maybe you decide actually, it's up to my kids to make their own way in life. I'm going to give everything to a donkey sanctuary.
Yeah,
And that's entirely, completely up to you. But then
yeah,
again, if you do that, then the children who may be feeling a bit entitled
yeah.
potentially could even go down that
Prepare
legal
them
route
for
path.
that.
Yeah.
Prepare them for that. Don't just suddenly dump it on them and let them
Mm,
think for 30 years that they're going to get a big inheritance and then get nothing. They
yeah.
need to prepare for that in advance. In their 20s, they need to
Yeah.
think, okay, I need to pull my socks. If your reason for doing that was so that they
Mm,
look after themselves, then make sure that they know that this is the situation that they are in time,
mm.
and give them time to be able to take the actions that they need to take. I really
And I guess it's a little bit about the kids as well, because some think, well, actually, I'm just gonna assume I'm not gonna get anything, and I'll live my life, and if I do, it will be a lovely surprise. But I'm not. Whereas others will kind of automatically, oh, my parents have X, therefore I'll get X, and it's that own kind of how your own values and your sort of there's an element of that as well, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it comes back to
Mm.
everybody's different.
Yeah,
Every situation's different. Um, Everybody's take on this, how they want to live their lives and what they want to do with their money is different. So, hence why the coaching bit is so important to help people work out what is right for you as an individual.
mm.
Um, the danger is that by the government kind of stepping in and helping to perhaps relieve some of the, we see it with workplace pensions where they have the default pension, which is designed to fit the
Mm.
majority of people and in terms of their circumstances. And as a result, the fact that it's designed to fit the majority means that it actually, in reality, fits nobody
Mm.
because people are so different and
Yeah,
diverse and their circumstances are so different that actually a default pension scheme is probably, likelihood is there's probably something better that would suit
mm.
you, and it's better than nothing, but it's not designed for you.
Yeah,
It is designed for somebody who doesn't exist. It's this average
yeah,
person, and nobody is average.
yeah. And I'm just conscious that actually we are sort of coming near to the end of our conversation. There's a couple of things that I did kind of find out or look at with kind of talk a little bit about budgeting. And there's two things that I came across, which is the 50-30-20 rule, which
Hmm.
is 50% of needs, 30% of wants, and 20% of savings. So that's
Hmm.
all of your income. And the other
Yeah,
one was the 7-10-10-10 rule, which is
yeah,
70% is living, 10% is emergency fund, 10% is long-term savings, and 10%
yeah,
is giving. Now,
yeah.
I don't do either of those. So
But you probably have a version that's right for
I
you,
have I
yeah?
have a version, and I do save money every month, and I do
Yeah,
obviously have my needs and my wants and stuff. But I think as well, just kind of going back to this kind of thing earlier, if you maybe don't feel so confident and you see, oh, there's this rule or this rule, and going, well, my financial circumstances do not allow for me to do that. Again, that's quite tough. You kind of almost like being told what to do, but it's like, well, actually, can't do
yeah.
that.
It's a framework,
Mm,
and it's a good idea to kind of portion down and say, okay, well, there's going to be a chunk that I need to spend on living now, and then maybe
yeah.
some bits I need to put aside. But you're completely right. It
Mm,
depends on your circumstances today.
mm,
It depends on where you are in your stages of life, and
mm,
yeah, and it's one of the perhaps failings of the default pension scheme again that goes
mm,
back is that it's great that they've set it up. It's great that it's got millions more people saving for their retirement, but it's set up at an average of, well, set up to 8% of your income goes into
mm,
a default into the pension scheme, made up of your contributions and employer contributions. But it also leads to this kind of inertia and the fact that people then assume that 8% is going to be enough
mm,
if they carry that on. And okay, it's okay, maybe as a starting point, and when you're in your 20s, that might be all you can afford to put into your pension schemes,
mm,
5% of your working contributions. But as you get older, you might want to think about ramping that up a
yeah.
bit as you're earning more and
Mm,
children have left home, and suddenly maybe you can put a bit more in just to sit at a flat rate.
mm,
And things change throughout life again. Certain times, you might find that you get a promotion in a couple of years' time, Claire, and suddenly you've got a bit more disposable income.
mm,
And it's at that point you need to say, okay, I need to keep hold of my prevent the lifestyle creep instead of
mm,
saying, oh wait, I've got a little bit extra money in my pension pot, now I can go and afford on that holiday. So no, okay, I'm going to put at least a proportion of that
mm,
aside. As your
yeah.
income increases, then increase the amount of savings and
Yeah.
investments and extras go along the way. And it's you've got to optimize for life.
Yeah.
It's what's optimal for you today. um, and everybody's going to be different around that. You can't just ignore today's needs for the future, and it's finding that
Or
balance
the
of
other way around as well, thinking all tomorrow's
yeah.
needs for today. Yeah.
And Morgan Housel had a fabulous quote. He said, the only good advice is mitigating future risk, and that mitigation of future risk, or not, or not future risk, future regret.
Mm,
Mitigate future regret. Now, what you might regret in the future will vary at different times in your life,
mm,
different stages of your life. When you're young, you don't want to miss out on the parties and traveling around the world when you're in your 20s. Would you regret that when you're 90? When take yourself to the end of your life and look
mm,
back and
mm,
think, when I'm 90, what do I want to remember about my life? What's important at that
yeah.
point? And try and find that
Yeah.
balance. And it is a balance.
Yeah.
Living at either end of the extreme is probably going to lead to some kind of regret later on.
Mm,
Either you regret not spending enough, or you regret not saving enough.
yeah.
Um, but the balance in between is totally going to be unique to you and where you are along the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Elsa. I just wondered, as we sort of wrap up, is there anything else that you just wanted to share that maybe we haven't covered?
Oh, well, just yeah, I think the one thing that will keep people always that will probably come back to me, and certainly myself, is like, I wish I'd started sooner.
Mm,
I wish I'd started sooner. And it's like, wherever you are, it's never too late to make a change to your financial understanding, your awareness, and to make a change
yeah.
to your life today and to your future life, and to the impact that will have on future
Mm,
generations, your children, your grandchildren, whatever. It's never too late to make a positive change wherever you are in your life,
yeah.
and you can make some surprising changes in quite a
Mm,
short period of time. So it's you
yeah.
can always make a positive difference.
And I think sort of adding to that as well, that is sort of great advice is to talk to somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
at a time and a location that you feel kind of safe in. And that it's a judgment-free zone, it's a judgment-free space, and kind of have an idea of the outcome of any conversations that you are going to have. So kind of why you're having them, where you would like to be. So if you're in debt, how you can start to get out of it, or if you want to buy a house, if you want to plan your retirement, if you think actually next year I have a big birthday, I want to go and spend a month in the Maldives, you know, and
Yeah.
how you can plan for that. So there's different things depending on where you are at that moment in time
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And just remember that it takes time.
Yeah.
For the vast, we all see 20 millionaire 20-year-olds who've made 20 millions on an Instagram or
Mm.
something. And the first question is, have they really got
Yeah.
20 million in a year? And secondly, it's that is an outlier.
Mm.
That doesn't represent the vast majority of people. Don't go thinking that everybody's life is like that, because it's not.
Mm.
For the vast majority of people, wealth is built slowly and steadily over time. Um, and and that's a good thing,
Yeah.
because it allows you to develop skills and knowledge and muscle along the way to help you manage that. They say, suddenly becoming a millionaire overnight brings a whole load of other
Mm.
complexities as well with it.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
In our show notes, I'm going to put a few links. So people like Martin Lewis has got a very good, he's a money saving expert. He's on the ITV a
Yeah,
lot, and he's got some great tips and advice on finding an IFA, as well as just a website which is full of really good advice. And also, I'll link to Citizens Advice Bureau, because they're also very kind of good with helping, kind of
yeah,
if you've got questions and things.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so thank you for your time, Elsa. And everybody have a great month.
Thank you, Claire. Enjoyed our chat.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Look after yourself, and I'll see you again soon. Stay curious and keep discovering.